Welcome, everybody. So I thought today is recently we went through the milestone of 2,500 subscribers in under 6 months. And so because of that, I wanted to roll out this next show, and it's going to be about product reviews. Today, the first one's up is going to be the my first tri bike, the 2015 Fuji Norcom Straight 2.1. But a brief thing about the product reviews. I'm not going to do an extensive amount of these on this channel. I only want to talk about something that I have extensive experience with and have what I could call enough to base a informed opinion that I tell a stranger about. So that being said, the Fuji Norcom Straight 2.1, don't buy this bike. It is not worth it. Buy a Cervelo. The resale value is always consistent. So to start going in on the details behind this bike, like I said, mine was purchased in 2015. And after reviewing everything on the Fuji website, I've learned that there have been absolutely no changes to the frame since its inception, or at least going back to 2014. All they do is change the paint schemes for the whole array of models because they have different numbers all on the same frame, and it just comes with different wheels and group sets. Anyway, frame's the same. They just start using new colors. So the bike we're going to talk about today is the same one I used to ride. And I was relatively new to the sport at the time, but if you don't know a whole lot about those bikes and they're not particularly popular, for instance, like if you look at the Kona bike count over the last 4 years, 2016, 27 Fujis, 2017, 37 Fujis, 2018, 18 Fujis, 2019, 18 Fujis. That's at the lower end of bike manufacturers' counts for the Kona bike count. Naturally, Cervelo is the highest one on that list. But there's not a lot of people riding Fujis. And as a matter of fact, on the Fuji website, there's only one pro triathlete listed under their sponsored athletes, and it's Sarah Haskins. And I knew of former pro triathlete Sarah McClarty, who once upon a time did ride a Fuji Norcom. But right now, they only have one. So let's start diving into the details about this bike. If you own this bike and you go to a bike shops, your mechanic will tell you they hate you and they hate your bike. Because in the handful of bike shops in the Atlanta metro area, every time I brought in that Norcom, they always had a complaint about whatever they had to do on it, because it was a very difficult task to do. And it's just because of the overall design of the bike and all the parts that are integrated into the bike. The two major areas of design issues that I'll really highlight here are its front and rear brakes. Now, if you look at this bike, you'll see that Fuji decided we are going to make these brakes as aero as fucking possible. So we're going to stash the one behind the fork, the other one underneath the chainstays. You're right, that is pretty aerodynamic. I'm sure it tests well in a wind tunnel. However, to actually wrench on this shit, do any work, hell, just to even change out the brake pads when you want to put on your race zip wheels, right? It's a fucking hassle, and it's not easy. None of it was easy. And the cables that, you know, front and back, both cables that run to those brakes, they stick out. Because it's been a few years, I don't remember which one does this, but either the front or the rear has no good place to go once it exits the housing. So they cap it with a ferrule, and at the end of the day, it's just too long to go anywhere, and it'll end up rubbing your wheel for the entire time you own the bike. It kind of sucks. The ferrule goes away, it frays. It's a pain in the ass. They have this little adjustment screw that it's burrowed deep into the actual brake itself. And I don't own the bike anymore, so I don't remember the finer points of how you do the adjustments. But it's a 1.5 millimeter Allen wrench head. And this screw, it would come with a little bit of Loctite on it. But if you do an Ironman training, you're riding enough to where that screw just doesn't stay in there and it backs its way out. And it's a royal pain in the ass. The rear brake, I remember it is, once it exits the housing, there is no good place to route it with that flex tube, or I don't remember the exact name. You just can't work it around in there. And mechanics hated doing my damn cables once a year. I remember to always buy them a 30-pack of Bud Light just because I knew how big of a pain in the ass it was. And I was so goddamn glad I wasn't the one doing it. And to keep going on the cables, the ones that are routed from the S-bar shifters, they can't come directly out of the back of the aero bars, out where the bar plugs are. It gives you the ability to do that, but there's actually no physical way you could route those cables to do that, because they would have to make a really fucking hard bend that they just can't do in order to be routed into the frame up by the stem. So yeah, I've already said that the routing of the cables on this bike sucks. Especially in the design of the cable, you know, layout over by the stem is horrible. But to talk about the cockpit itself, in terms of comfort, you can get away with, even with a good fit, you can survive an Olympic, probably a 70.3. When I was doing Ironmans on that bike, I'm trying to think of a good analogy to describe the level of discomfort riding 112 miles in the aero bars, in this cockpit, on this bike, that you shouldn't buy. I got one. It's about as uncomfortable as sitting next to a Pauly Shore in a Planned Parenthood. It's fucking miserable for that many miles. So, I mean, I fucking hated it. What are the other major points I would like to touch on? Those bar plugs that are in the back of the aero bars, they will not stay in there. Eventually, I got sick of losing them and having to buy new ones. I just fucking siliconed them in there so they wouldn't come out. Because it's not like the cables can exit out the back anyway, so fuck it. You're going to stay in there. To go back to the brakes really quick, the screw to fasten the brake pads to the brakes, god damn, it was incredibly easy to always strip that screw. It never fucking failed. no matter how gentle of a touch I did to swap out my goddamn brake pads, I would always manage to fuck up and strip that screw. It fucking pissed me off beyond no. I hated it. Let's talk about the warranty a little bit. For the most part, it sucks. I do have an instance to where I'll cite that I actually had to warranty part of the bike. So I have the old wheel that came on the bike here. See, it's kind of a carbon wheel, but it's Fuji's factory brand called Oval. It's a carbon, it's no special carbon wheel. And this particular design has, my zips don't have this, but it's got a couple of drain holes in the side of the side wall of the carbon wheel itself. When you ride in the rain, those drain holes flood with water. So first of all, when you're racing and you're riding in the rain, you gain a ton of extra weight because of that. And once that water's in there, it took me forever to find a good way to drain it out of there. But it's not going to happen while you're riding the bike. You just gained a whole bunch of weight. And these wheels suck. So let's talk about the warranty issue I had. I had the bike racked on the back of my car, and some asshole hit the wheel. It ripped the spokes. Okay. They said, we'll warranty the wheel. I said, great. So after 2 months of calling and bitching and being a royal pain in the ass, they finally sent me a new wheel. Obviously, I don't have the bike, so I can't tell you, but they did not send me the exact same wheel to match the bike. Again, you saw that the old wheel had the red trim for the oval thing. They sent me a wheel that had the dark blue trim, and it looked like shit on that bike. Luckily, today I do not have to live with knowing that would really bug the shit out of me if I still owned it. It's somebody else's problem. So let's get to that. Let's talk about the resale value of this bike. I happened to work for Performance Bicycle at the time I bought this. And I was still really new to the sport. I didn't know much. And they'd hire anybody who could ride a bike. So it was a learning experience for me. I didn't know that Fuji just doesn't make really great bikes. But again, learning experience. So, shit, I'm starting to lose where I was going with that. I think I lost it. Yeah, damn. Oh, all right. So the Norcom I bought, the retail price on this bike is like $3,500. Due to my pro deal, I got it new in the box, $2,100. I'm like, okay. I got a bike that's basically close to complete Ultegra Di2 drivetrain. It comes with the oval Fuji brand crank. I eventually completely switched that out for an Ultegra crank to match the set, and so I could put a Stages power meter on that bike. It really should come with an Ultegra crank, though. Anyway, so when I went to sell this bike, I started it off at $1,500. I got no interest. I kept dropping the price. I got to $1,000. I got no interest. I got to about $600 before some kid in the middle of Georgia begged his dad, let's buy this bike. These two guys were a real pain in the ass once they got this bike. And I'll be honest, it's not my bike anymore. All the problems, design problems this bike has, they're now your problems. As this Polish saying goes, not my monkey, not my circus. So stop fucking calling me. And that went on for like 6 months I just block those numbers. Anyway, you know, a bike I bought 3 years before that had, you know, it now had a complete set of Ultegra drivetrain. I could only get $600 for it. Resale value on this bike fucking sucks. And it's because nobody fucking wants them. So, I mean, you'll find somebody who's relatively new to the sport who they'll buy it. But for people who've been here a while and know anything, they know better. You know, I think I have actually managed to cover all the issues. Listen, that's phenomenal. I hope you like this. I really hated the design of that bike, so I felt very passionate about this enough to want this to be my first episode. We're going to start it off right and give one really hell of a bad review to a bike. So, thanks everybody for tuning in for this, the first episode of my launch of this third show. Please do like, subscribe to my channel if you haven't already. If you like my shit, turn on the bell to get notifications whenever I post new stuff. Thanks again, everybody, and I appreciate everybody who's followed and helped me build to what I've really started to become with my channel. So, thank you, and here's to bringing you more shows.